Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about the recent outbreaks of Salmonella and E. coli in our turkey and romaine lettuce crops. Just a little bit of background information about how that kind of thing occurs and what you can do to keep yourself safe and why you don't need to fear eating vegetables because they could be a source of that kind of stuff, okay? So first and foremost, Salmonella and E. coli are two completely separate bacteria that are most often found in the fecal matter from mammals. So think cows, pigs, chickens, deer, anything that lives out in the wild could potentially have Salmonella or E. coli in their gastrointestinal tract. And then when their droppings get onto different crops and things like that, they could disease the crop. Okay. So most often, in terms of the turkey outbreak first, more often than not, those types of things occur when an animal is sick and that animal is not known to be sick prior to the slaughtering process. Okay. A little bit of background about how our country goes about slaughtering animals. Not exactly the cleanest procedure. Most of our cows, just as an example, grow up in what are known as confined animal feeding operations, or CAFOs for short. So you're thinking hundreds of acres filled with hundreds of thousands of head of cattle. And they are all in little paddocks, maybe like 10 feet by 10 feet. And there could be like 20 or 30 or however many cows can fit shoulder to shoulder within that 10 by 10 paddock. Okay. So the problem therein lies that the cows can't move around very much, and when they urinate and drop their fecal matter, it kind of just sort of gets everywhere, and then they're stepping in it, and then it's getting all over them, and then they get taken to slaughter. There's where the real problem happens, because those cows don't get a bath before they go to slaughter, okay? So really scary statistic, in every hamburger that you eat, there could be pieces of up to 1,000 cows present. No kidding. I've watched just about every food documentary there ever was on the planet. I'm pretty sure that statistic comes from either Food Incorporated or what was the other one? I'd have to remember, but I'm pretty sure that one was from Food Inc. So yeah, kind of scary. So the cows don't get a bath before they go to slaughter. And so they all just kind of walk into this thing and they end up dead and they end up as a hamburger. So if there is a sick cow present in the mix there, then that one sick cow, cause cows are like 700-800 pounds sometimes, can infect a whole lot of beef. Okay, and so that is very similar to what happened in the case of the turkey outbreak a couple of months ago, okay? There was an issue where one turkey was sick or had been infected with salmonella, and then obviously that turkey's meat ended up in multiple different kinds of packages, or there could have even been more than one sick turkey. They all get slaughtered, all of that meat kind of goes together, and then it ends up in separate packs. And that's how it ends up in multiple different packages in multiple different states, making tons and tons of people sick, okay? The difference between that and how that then affects our crops is a little different, okay? Obviously, our plants have no defecation system, so they don't have a gastrointestinal tract to be able to pick up bugs and viruses like that to then be able to infect themselves and infect other crops, okay? Where we start to see issues of E. coli, salmonella, listeria, things of that nature in our actual crops. So think the spinach outbreak from about 6 or 8 years ago to the romaine lettuce outbreak now. All of those things come about due to runoff from farms. Okay, so you have to think, right? We talked about confined animal feeding operations. There's a lot of animals in a very small amount of space. And eventually it will rain and all of that fecal matter will then run downstream, okay? That becomes a very large issue because then that fecal matter runs downstream to where there just so happens to be a farm that's growing spinach, growing romaine lettuce, growing other crops and vegetables and things of that nature. And so that fecal matter then contaminates the entire produce farm. Okay, because they're either irrigating with contaminated fecal matter. In this country, we do allow for 20% like regular organic matter coming from the repurposing of mammalian fecal matter as fertilizer for our crops. Okay. So it's either being actively put on those crops as fertilizer, unbeknownst to the farmers that it is contaminated, or it's legitimately running off through the land, getting into the streams, and then getting into the water supply that is then providing nourishment to those crops. Okay. So how this newest outbreak occurred in our romaine lettuce was just that. Okay, there was a contaminated animal, there was a contaminated farm upstream from those romaine lettuce fields, and those got contaminated from that contaminated fecal matter. And it just, yes, we wash our products, but we don't wash it enough to kill all of those bacteria, especially when you're eating it in a salad and you don't cook that produce before eating it, which would then kill that virus. Okay. So the CDC and most of the news places right now are still saying that romaine lettuce is not safe to eat. There was a large enough crop produced that it put out enough food throughout the country that there could still be some on the shelves. Obviously, most grocery stores have been pulling it off of the shelves and either throwing it away or sending it back to the company so that it can be tested so they can find out exactly the magnitude of the proliferation of the contaminated produce, basically how far it got and how wide reaching the effects are. But it is something to kind of be in consideration of. A great rule of thumb is to always wash your vegetables. Okay. That goes to literally just putting it under lukewarm water and scrubbing it very, very, very well between your hands, to actually using a vinegar solution that will help clean that product off. I don't normally recommend even using those like Fit vegetable washes and things like that, because they do generally tend to have additional chemicals in them that aren't safe to be ingested. But there are several different ways that you can mix water and vinegar and even some baking soda in to create a vegetable wash of your own that will then keep you safe and help cleanse your vegetables of those possible contaminants. Okay, so that's kind of how to keep yourself safe. That's kind of a little bit on how those outbreaks even occur. But you shouldn't fear eating vegetables out of the chance that they might be contaminated, okay? Every other vegetable as of right now is safe outside of romaine. So you still have tons of other lettuces to choose from for healthy options. Just make sure you're getting those veggies in, especially this time of year, because it's going to help boost your immune system and keep you from getting the colds and the flus that are very, very prevalent this time of year. So happy holidays. Stay safe in your eating, and I'll talk to you next week.